So with the exterior right sides out, and just checking I haven't twisted my strap here. Have I done something terrible? No, I haven't. Phew! Gosh, okay. So now we need to put the exterior inside the lining, and remember we're matching darts to darts. Now the lining is smaller than the exterior. I wonder if I can roll this up and tuck it inside the pocket, just to keep it out of the way for the minute. That would be a good idea, wouldn't it? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that flap is tucked away inside there. So now we need to tuck this inside the lining. Hang on, let's double check we've left our zip pocket open. We have. Yep. Good. Okay, so with that slip pocket flat, okay, we're going to put the exterior of the bag inside the lining. And it is a tight fit, as I said, but if you do it this way, you've only got to turn your bag out, right way out once, instead of having to turn it right way out once and then turn it through again a second time. So if you've got fabric that creases particularly badly, this is always a top tip for you. Now we've made our lining slightly smaller, haven't we, because we took the seam allowances in extra, so you are going to have to stretch this a little bit to get it to match. But if you match the centres on the front and the back first, where's my centre mark on my back? Oh no, I may have forgotten to do this centre mark. Let's see. Let this be a lesson to me. Right, I might have to adjust that as we work our way around. And then we'll just work around and we'll try to just pull the lining tight so that the side seams match. Now that actually matches fine on that side. If you've got fabric that's particularly thick, then if you press your seam allowances open, it does help quite a lot with bulk around here. Okay, make sure my strap is hanging down straight inside the bag. We don't want it to be twisted or caught up or anything. Use that extra clip before I lose it, and we'll go back and do around the other side. There we go, we're so close to being finished. Great. Okay, so you can see it's pulling a little bit where the exterior is bigger and there's more bulk and it's inside the lining, but don't panic. Once we sew it, it will all come good. Okay, nearly finished. Just smooth that out. This is a lesson for me, isn't it? Always, always, always mark the centres before you start. Okay. So this is actually the back of the bag. So I am going to start stitching here at the back of the bag, and I'm going to sew all the way around this top edge. And because I haven't got an extension, I've got a flatbed sewing machine, so I'm going to sew it inside. So I'm going to put my foot in here, my presser foot obviously, and then I'm going to sew around and just move the bag out of the way as we go. Right, so I'll start at the back. So I'll take a pin or a clip out. You can use pins for this if you prefer, but I find the chance of being stuck with a pin is quite high. So start with your needle down, because that means if you need to adjust at any time, you can easily do that. Just flattening my seam allowances there so that they go to different directions. I believe the proper term for that is nesting them, just to reduce the bulk. so I'll just double check that everything's all good. Haven't got any puckers. Yep, great. And if your fabric is particularly thick, you might want to go ahead and trim down some of the seam allowances on the exterior edge. I might just trim some of my threads because I've got a little bit of fraying here just before I turn it right sides out. And I know, or I remember we steam pressed our stitches previously, so when we remove these, it should leave behind a little line of stitch holes. So seam ripper back out, and we're going to take away this line of basting stitches at the bottom of the turning gap on our zip pocket. There we go, yeah, it's leaving a nice little line of holes behind. Taking this thread away as I pull it out, and then on the back I can just snip one end and snip the other. Okay, lid back on the seam ripper. Okay, so now we can reach through, and because we left our zip open, although I am pretty good at opening zips from the inside now, it's obviously a mistake I make regularly, and we're just going to gently tug the bag out through the pocket, just very gently. Okay, now when I first reached through, I had my hand in the slip pocket. Just need to be aware of that. Okay, oh, there's our flap that was tucked in. There we go. So I can reach back through the turning gap and just make sure that those corners are nicely pressed out, nicely pushed out before we get started on the finishing touches. And I've got a little thread there, so I'm going to snip that before we go much further, because I'll probably lose it afterwards, and then it will always be there. And I've got any extra little threads? No? Okay. Great. Okay, so now we need to tuck our lining back inside the bag and just give it a good old push into the corners. Make sure everything's sitting where it should, everything's pulled out nicely. So push that slip pocket into place, smooth the fabric of the lining down into place. There we go. Okay. So I like to do this before I close my turning gap, just to make sure that everything is all sitting nicely before we close it. Okay, so now you've got the option of either doing your top stitching first or closing the turning gap. What have I got here? Let's see, sew around it, turn it out, good press and top stitch. I guess I'd better put my iron on, hadn't I? I forgot to do that this morning. Hang on a second. Right, put my iron on now. Should have done that before, shouldn't I? So now we can give this bag a really good press. And I'm going to use my sleeve board, if I can find it. I'm sure I've got it around here somewhere. Here it is. I've got too many drawers. Okay. I'm going to use my little sleeve board. And how can I position that so you can see it? There we go. I'm going to pop my bag over the end. Just roll that lining into the lining side. Give it a really good steam press. If you've got a, you know, one of those little tabletop ironing boards, this is that's great for this. You can usually get it inside most bags to give them a good press. Pressing along the top seam there. And my fabric is not too badly creased, but at the end, before I take any photos and show anyone, I'm going to be going along, giving it a final press, just to make sure it looks really nice and neat before I go putting photos up. And also I find if you don't do a really good press at the end, before you take photos and things, you always forget, and I'm terrible for procrastinating. Okay. So I've done the front, get my pocket out of the way. So I've pressed that, left it a couple of seconds and then added a clip. I find if you clip it straight away, it leaves little indentations on the fabric, you can see it. Oh, okay, don't scald your fingers. Okay. And we'll see what we can do on these side edges. Put my strap out of the way. Might help if I have my little sleeve board hanging over the edge maybe. Just give it a little press there. If you're using vinyl, you need to be careful of pressing it obviously, so cover anything that doesn't react well to heat. Add a couple of pins, clips along the top there. Now you might feel that by steam pressing it, you've added a few extra little creases inside the top there. Don't panic. Once we've done this top stitch, we're going to go back and give it a good press anyway. Just tucking my lining down inside and clip. Okay, and just one little gusset edge still to press. Make sure my slip pocket is to one side there. And if you've pressed open your seam allowances as you're sewing, you'll find that this is just a lot neater when it comes to these where these seams mate. Okay, so now we need to top stitch around the outside. And, do you know, I'm going to increase my strap length, I think, just to be sure that I can keep it out of the way while I'm stitching. Okay. Oh, it's just twisted in my ring. There we go. Now, because I've got a flatbed, I'm going to turn my bag inside out so that as I'm stitching, because I've got to stitch on the inside of the bag, as I'm stitching on the exterior fabric. And then I can be sure that I'm definitely doing a nice neat stitch line. So I'm turning my bag out once more. There's a bit more turning in and out with a flatbed machine. At least you get to have a look at your lining and check how your lining looks though. Looks neat from what I can see. So I'm going to start at the back again because I think it's the least noticed place. So I'll take a clip out and I'm going to start there at the back and go all the way around. Just move my flap and my strap out of the way as I go. And I'm going to start my needle down so that if I need to readjust my hands as I go round, I can. Okay, just smooth this fabric out of the way as you're sewing around. Don't be afraid of manipulating your flap out of the way. Pull my flap out of the way again so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, remove those clips. So I'm just pulling my strap out of the way Make sure that it's not going to get caught as I'm sewing. I'm nearly back to the start again. So just smooth all these layers down. That's your top stitching. Make sure there's no puckers. There we go. Okay. Right, that looks good. So while I've got my bag inside out, I'm going to close up this turning gap in the zip pocket, I think, just while I'm here. So just turn that right sides out, pull those corners out. Now where we stitched along, there should be a nice little row of stitch holes, and if you fold along those stitch holes and sort of use your thumbnail to just score along it, helps it sit really neatly. Okay, so I'll add a couple of clips. If you prefer to press these, you can, absolutely. Just trying to see where the holes are on my fabric, not very easy to see, but that's fine. Okay, so I've matched those up. Now I'm just going to sew along the bottom edge of that zip pocket. I'll keep the rest of my bag out of the way as best I can. Just top stitching mine, but if you like a nice neat finish, you can always do a ladder stitch on that turning gap, but this is going to be inside your zip pocket, so people shouldn't really be looking in there. Okay, so now that's in and smoothed out, I'm going to close up my zip, and that will help to keep that zip pocket in place as I turn this right sides out now. Well, hang on, I found another loose thread. Get that before I go any further. They all seem to disappear, don't they, until you take your photos at the end, and then they're glaringly obvious. Okay, so as I'm turning this out, just push all the corner edges out into place, and just use your hands, you know, one hand inside your bag and one hand on the outside, just to smooth those curves out all the way around. Okay. And I'll put my hand inside the slip pocket and smooth the lining out, and then smooth the slip pocket out, and then run my hands around the front, inside. Make sure that all of that layer is completely smooth. Okay, great. So now it's time for a final press, and again I'm going to use my sleeve board and just pop it inside my bag. If you've got oven glove or something like that you can put on your hand, you can also put your hand inside the bag and then press on top, but make sure if you feel any heat coming through, you stop straight away and don't scald your hand, because safety never takes a day off, even when you're having fun sewing. Just trim that extra thread there. Okay, so that's the back of the bag, sitting really nice and neat. And I wonder if I can fold that flap down so that I can press the front of the bag. And I'm just going to gently steam around these darts. Don't want to press them flat, because that's what's giving our bag the shape. And again, there we go. Just gently, very gently steaming all the way around there. So let's double check that the bag is fine, no creases, can't see anything untowards. Okay, so now comes the fun bit. Our bag's finished apart from that front bit of the lock, isn't it? Let me turn it around this way so you can see. So now we need to trace our shape on the flap and then trim it out. So here's my my paper scissors. Oh, I haven't got paper scissors. I shall use the lock instead then. Okay, so I've got my screws in there still. Now I can feel through the fabric where my stabilizer is. So using my chalk pen, I know definitely comes out. Got a grey one here. Just going to trace that curve through the fabric. Of course, if you've got your template, just use your template. Just lay it on. Just make sure that it's centered. So before you cut, you can pull your flap over and sort of line it up against the bottom half of the lock and just make sure that it's central to that. Okay, so that's my chalk mark, and I'm just going to lay the edge of the lock on and double check that that sort of matches. Yeah, okay, great. Okay. Just going to lay my template on top just to double check. I don't want to be cutting holes on a video. Right, great. Okay, now before you cut, grab yourself some fray check and fray check on the stitches either side of where we're going to be cutting on the on both sides of the flap. Okay, that will help this prevent this stitching fraying. And what else are we going to need out of here? We're going to need glue as well. And we're going to need some screwdrivers. Okay. Okay. Now I've just left that for a couple of seconds just to dry it. Now we're going to trim away inside of this curve. Okay, so don't be too scared. Don't panic. It's fine. It's fine, we're cutting into our finished bag, but it'll be fine. I'm just going to nip and get my paper scissors and double check my template before I cut live on a video. Right, come on now, you just need to be brave. Okay, so I've cut out my template and you'll see that it's different from stabilizer template. So if you lay them on top, you can see there's an extra 1/4 inch difference, okay? So we're going to lay this on top of where the stabilizer is. And really should have marked where the centre was as well with my chalk pen. That's not where the centre is with my chalk pen. Okay, and lay this on top. And then we'll draw around the inside of this curve. Probably with, oh, I'm going to risk it with my Sharpie. Because otherwise you're not going to see it. Now if you've got something that will wash away, that would always be better. I'll put my chalk pen away. Okay, so I've drawn my little semicircle at the bottom there. And what you can do, if you're not particularly confident about cutting into it, you can always add a dab of fray check to the fabric before you cut. I'm not going to, I'm just going to cut. Okay, so cut from the bottom around that curve. Just make sure that your layers are all flat and straight. I've swapped from my tiny scissors to my bigger scissors because my tiny scissors are not as sharp And just take tiny little snips till you work your way all the way around this curve. Okay, we can always take a little bit extra away, but we can't add any on. Okay, so there's our curve. So before we do anything else, just slot that into the lock and double check that is the right position. Yep, that looks good to me. Okay. So now that we've got that trimmed, I'm going to fray check all of the layers. Take your time doing this, it's alright, you don't need to rush it. Unless of course you've made it for an occasion and you're late to the occasion. In which case you should probably just go and buy a bunch of flowers and come back to the bag later. Okay. There we go. And now I'm going to see what I've got to help me poke all the layers in. So I'll probably use my point turner, I think, to poke all the layers in. So I've fray checked that. And just, yeah, that's fine. Okay, so now we need to add a good little dollop of glue. And you can either add it to the inside of the lock or the fabric. I prefer to add it to the lock because then I think it's not going anywhere. Make sure it goes inside that little channel there. And if you're getting any on the outside, just wipe it off before it dries. Okay, so I've always got scraps of fabric around. We're just going to slot this lock on. So I'm going to get my point turner and my collar point turner and just encourage that fabric inside the channels there. And then turn it over and, oh, I've missed my fabric out on the back. So we'll push that in. Make sure that's all pushed in nice and neat and wiggled into place. You can always use a pin just to encourage it in. Okay. Make sure that's all nicely pushed into the edges of the lock. And yeah, that's sitting nice and snug on the back, nice and snug on the front. I've got a little bit of extra glue on the front at the bottom there, so I'll just use my pin to get that out. Okay, so we'll just leave that a couple of seconds to set. And we're done with our fray check. Oh, we're so close to being done with our bag. It's exciting. Yay! And we'll need our screwdrivers. Put all of these things away. We're all done. Just our screws to put in now. Now you always get an extra one screw in the packet, so don't panic too much. I'm going to turn that over and I'm just going to put my pattern down so that I'm on a softer surface. If you've got a little scrap of fabric, you can pop it down there as well. Just make sure it's not going to scratch while we're doing this. Now I've got a set of magnetic screwdrivers, and I can see from my pattern it was the green one last time, so, so that makes it easy. And we need 3 screws. I'm going to pop the middle one in first. So I've got a magnetic screwdriver, so I attach my screw to the screwdriver and then very carefully pop it in. And these screws have got a point on the end, so they should pierce through your fabric. Don't need to cut holes for them. Okay, that one's in nice and tight. So do the same with one on the other side. And just the added glue inside that frame channel and these screws will help prevent this coming out. I like to leave mine a little while before I go out and use my bag, just in case, just to leave the glue to set a little bit longer. Right. One of my screws has got a thing missing, so I'm just going to use one of these other screws I've got from a previous set. I always keep my extra screws. Okay, so we'll just add that last one. And I'm pushing down on my flap to make sure that it's straight as I'm screwing that in. Okay, so there we go. So hopefully that glue should be set, and I can remove my chalk marks. Let's double check that it fits. I don't know why we're double checking it fits, because it came out of that lock, didn't it? There we go. So I'll take the plastic off to show you, admire our finished bags, and then I'll pop the plastic back on for putting it back in storage. So there we go. So once you've got your bag finished, you can just sort of rub your hands along the top, and that will help encourage the flap to get that little curve that we need for it to fold over from the back to the front. There we go. So that's our finished button lock bag. And it looks quite nice, doesn't it? It looks quite good. So if you need to go and do a final press, you can do that again now. Just roll out your seams, or you can add a little bit of stuffing, go and take some photos. Or you can just, I don't know, hang it up somewhere where you can admire it. That is our button lock bag, and I'm going to pop this plastic back on the lock just to protect it from scratches, just to be sure. And then to unlock, you just press on the bottom of that, and you can feel you've got the extra stabiliser in there. Got a bit of extra stabiliser in the main bag. There we go. So that is our finished button lock bag. Well done, we've done a really good job there. You should be proud of yourselves, and I can't wait to see what you make. So we finished our bag now, and there it is, fully done. And remember, you can change the length of your strap, so if you've got it long, you can wear it as a crossbody bag and wear it on your hip. It's quite a nice size, or you can have it as a handbag just by shortening the strap. Take that to as short as it goes. Wear that as a shoulder bag, like that. And that just fits really nicely under your arm there. So that's how it looks against me. That's what size it is. I'm quite pleased with it. Hope you're pleased with yours as well. And I can't wait to see what you make. So please do show me your finished bags.